Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of the MMA Business Hour. And in today's episode, I want to discuss with everyone on why Dana White is failing as the UFC president. It's not going to be what you think. It's not going to be the BS with Colby Covington getting the title shot at 170. It's not going to be about him slapping his wife and getting away with it. And it's not going to be how Dana White is jamming power slap down all the current UFC fans' throat. Dana White is failing as a UFC president because of the current judging situation in the UFC. The latest example was this past weekend in the Corey Sandhagen-Chito Vera fight, where one of the judges scored the fight 48-47 in favor of Chito Vera. Anyone who's watched this sport for more than 5 minutes knew that Corey Sandhagen clearly won this fight, and in my opinion, I think I scored it 49-46 with the third round. I gave that third round to Chito. But the 50-45 scorecard is something that you can't really argue with. But this guy, who scored it 48-47, has no business judging a UFC main event, let alone any UFC event. These UFC fighters put their lives on the line every time they step into the octagon. And to allow these judges who have no idea what they're doing is an abomination to the sport. It's not fair to the fans. It's definitely not fair to the fighters. And if you are in partners with the UFC, you want to see judging be fair. You can't have someone score the fight 5-0 and then some other guy have Chito Vera winning the fight. Corey Sandhagen landed more strikes than Chito Vera even threw in the entire fight. It is absolutely a disgrace to the sport. And I was watching Ariel Helwani's show this past weekend. He had Corey Sandhagen on, and they were discussing what happened to the judging. I want you to check out this video right now and let me know what you guys think.
Like the 48-47 for you is one of the worst, or for Chito is one of the worst scorecards, and I feel like Chito would be honest enough to say that himself. Are we just supposed to be like, oh, okay, the right guy won, let's move on?
I agree with Ariel 100%. That 48-47 card for Chito Vera was an absolute abomination. And then Ariel posed us a question. Should we just move on because the right fighter won? No, we shouldn't move on. Clearly, there's an issue with judging, especially in states like Texas, where these people have no idea what they're doing. This judge has never scored a UFC event before this one. So he scored one fight earlier at this event, and then he's a judge on the main event of fighters that are in the top 10. It's absolutely insane that some guy who has no idea what he's doing is in charge of scoring a fight that is going to could potentially change the lives of one of these fighters. I mean, like I said before, these fighters are putting it all on the line. They're fighting their asses off. They deserve to be judged by the rules. There's so many different variables with scoring UFC fights that there needs to be a better pool of people judging these fights. We can't have some guy who has no experience judging the main event of a UFC card where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line and $50,000 or $75,000 bonuses. It's just not fair to the fighters. And Dana White knows this is a problem and continues to do nothing about it.
These guys, the guy who scored it 48-47 for Chito had never scored a UFC fight before, ever. Like that shouldn't, like it can't, and now he's doing the main event of a UFC, a massive fight with these implications. This is insanity, no?
That's insane. I actually didn't even know that. Holy shit. That is crazy.
I 100% agree with what Corey Sandhagen just said. It's absolutely insane. It is batshit crazy that an organization that is prestigious as the UFC is having some asshole who has never judged a fight in the UFC until, 4 matches before, and now he's judging the main event with, like Ariel was saying, like crazy implications. Like the winner of this fight is going to move into a top 3, top 5 ranking and then be in line for a potential title shot. And there's just so much money on the line, And fighters are already like ridiculously underpaid, and now you're getting these judges who don't know what the hell they're talking about. It is just shameful. In my opinion, I think Dana White is holding back the UFC and its fighters in more ways than one. Between the Dana White privilege and this power slap bullshit, I mean, what do you guys think? In the comments below, please leave your opinion on this situation. Like, what do we do? Do we get a collective of, PFL, Bellator, and UFC, where they nominate individuals who can get into this judging program and get a collective of them and then send them to all the events? Or do you think we should still do it the way we do it, where each state sends their own representatives? I'm really curious to what everyone else thinks to me, and I'm sure it doesn't make any sense to you. This guy's name is Joel Ojeda, and he has never scored a PFL fight, a Bellator fight, a UFC fight. The only fight he ever judged was the Steven Peterson fight earlier in the night. It's absolutely insane, and this guy has, like Ariel said, zero business officiating the prelims, let alone the main event. I mean, Chito Vera, what if the other judge messed up too and then Chito Vera won that fight? That would be the worst decision I've ever seen in the UFC, and there's been tons of them. In order for the UFC to get that true NFL status, all this bullshit needs to be sorted out. You can't have some asshole, no offense, Joel Ojeda, I'm sure you're a terrific guy, but you have no idea what you're talking about, and you have no business judging any UFC fighter's career, let alone the main event. They have tons of problems when they go to Texas. They have problems in New York. They have problems in Florida. It's like we need a coalition to come together and get an organization where these guys are vetted, they are continually educating themselves, and they're trained and versed in all things MMA. Thanks so much for tuning in this video. I know it was a little long-winded, but hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for tuning into all this content. I'm going to continue to bring you the best UFC content I can. Thank you, and we'll catch you guys on the next fight.